Welcome back to our channel. Today we honor remarkable lives that shaped our screens and stories. We remember the intense, unpredictable brilliance of actor Nicky Katt, the quiet resilience of icon Marsh, and the trailblazing legacy of Judy Pace, who broke barriers with dignity and grace. We also reflect on the enduring, complex journey of Robert De Niro, whose life reminds us that true strength is found in persistence. Their contributions remain etched in history. What defines a legacy that outlives the final curtain? Now let's begin. Some actors play heroes, others become the reason those heroes exist. Nicky Katt lived in that space. Nicholas Katt, who passed away on April 8, 2025, in Burbank at the age of 54, died by suicide after a long struggle with depression. He was known not for leading the story, but for sharpening it. In Dazed and Confused, his Clint Bruno turned a small role into something unforgettable. In films like The Limey, Sin City, and Insomnia, he brought a dangerous intelligence to characters who lived between order and chaos. He was never the clean-cut action figure. He was the tension in the room, the man who made every moment feel unpredictable. His strength came from instinct, from characters who thought fast and pushed harder when cornered. Behind that intensity was a quieter fight few could see. Nicky Katt leaves behind a legacy where the line between control and collapse was never far apart. Marsh was not the loudest presence on screen, but she helped define the worlds others moved through. She passed away on April 13, 2025, at the age of 90 due to complications from dementia, closing a career that quietly shaped television history. As the co-creator and star of Upstairs, Downstairs, she built one of the most influential series of its era, earning a Primetime Emmy in 1975 for her role as Rose Buck. The show did not rely on action in the traditional sense, yet every moment carried tension, power, and unseen conflict. Marsh's strength was never physical. It lived in stillness, in the way she revealed entire struggles without raising her voice. Even after serious health setbacks later in life, she returned with the same quiet resilience. Marsh leaves behind a legacy where the greatest battles were not fought loudly, but felt deeply and remembered long after the screen fades. Breaking news. What remains of a man when the silence outlives the applause? When the roles fade, but the weight of living never does. At 83, Robert De Niro no longer stands as an untouchable force, but as something far more human. A man who has endured decades of brilliance, yet still carries shadows that never fully loosen their grip. Behind the controlled gaze that defined generations lies not just mastery, but a life shaped by absence, endurance, and the quiet cost of becoming a legend. Robert De Niro was born on August 17, 1943 in Manhattan, into a household rich in art but fragile in stability. His parents separated when he was barely 3, leaving him to grow up between two worlds that never fully connected. His father, a gifted painter, loved him from a distance, while his mother carried the weight of raising him alone through relentless work. That early fracture did not erupt loudly. It settled deep, shaping a child who learned to observe rather than speak, to absorb rather than react. He moved through Greenwich Village feeling both surrounded and alone, a quiet boy who would later admit that the conversations he needed most never truly happened. Acting became his refuge long before it became his identity. At 17, he walked away from traditional education, choosing uncertainty over comfort, driven not by ambition, but by the need to find a place where he could exist without explaining himself. Years of rejection followed, silent phones, forgotten auditions, roles that barely left a trace. Yet something within him refused to collapse. By 1973, with Bang the Drum slowly and Mean Streets, the industry finally began to recognize what had been forming in silence. A presence built not on volume, but on restraint. From Taxi Driver to Raging Bull, Goodfellas to Casino, De Niro did not simply perform, he transformed, using stillness as power and tension as language. But transformation demanded a cost the audience never fully saw. For Raging Bull, he altered his body dramatically, placing immense strain on his health. Years of intense roles left emotional residue, shadows that did not always fade when filming ended. In 2003, he faced prostate cancer, a diagnosis that shifted his understanding of time and mortality. Though treatment was successful, the experience left a permanent imprint. Later, injuries such as a torn tendon slowed his physical movement, forcing him to confront the limits of a body once pushed without hesitation. Beyond the screen, his life carried its own fractures. Multiple marriages ended in separation. Public disputes revealed the strain behind private relationships and the responsibilities of fatherhood, especially raising a son with autism, deepened his emotional world in ways few could see. Loss, too, found its way into his life, reminding him that even legacy cannot shield the heart from grief. And yet Robert De Niro endures, not as an untouchable icon, but as a man who continues to show up despite everything time has taken. His legacy is not only built on unforgettable performances, but on the quiet truth that strength is not perfection, it is persistence. If his journey has ever stayed with you, let us remember him not just as a legend, but as a human being who never stopped standing, even when the weight became unbearable. He is still alive. Judy Pace was not just part of television history, she helped change who could belong in it. She passed away on March 11, 2026 at the age of 83, leaving behind a career that quietly broke barriers. As one of the first Black actresses under long-term contract at Columbia Pictures, she stepped into an industry that rarely made space for her. In Peyton Place, she became one of the most visible Black faces on primetime television. In Brian's Song, 1971, watched by more than 55 million viewers, she stood inside one of the most powerful stories of its era. Her performance in The Young Lawyers earned her an NAACP Image Award in 1970, marking a moment when representation began to shift. Her strength was not built on spectacle, but on presence, dignity, and persistence. Judy Pace leaves behind a legacy where simply being seen became a form of courage that changed the screen forever.